Welcome back to the Football League Paper podcast. My name is Matt Badcock. I'm joined by editor John Lyons and chief writer Chris Dunlavy. Chaps, how are we?
Yeah, all good, Banners, all good, thanks.
It's International Week, Championship. Are having a breather. Some even, as the way of the world these days, League One and League Two, not everybody's in action. So I know you boys have got a very busy week. Fill in the paper that will be out on Sunday as usual. It kind of seems I don't know, a bit mad that we're at this final international break of the of the season already. Sort of looking at the tables, and we're kind of getting down into the single digits of games left. It's obviously all going to be happening over the next coming few weeks. We're going to start seeing who's sealing titles. We're seeing fans starting to maybe plan what game their team might be popping the champagne. We thought today we'd do a little bit of a special, having a look at the potential Championship players of the year. No, see, the managers get asked, don't they, around this time of year to sort of put their thoughts out there. They're the ones who are seeing these players up close. They put out their ideas. We thought I thought I'd pick you chaps, your brains today to see who you fancied. We'll do League One and League Two kind of in the next couple of episodes as well. But we'll have a look at the Championship this week. Chris, I'll come to you first. Well, I'm loath to say give us your top one out of a top or your top three, but let's who do you think should be in the mix in that top three when it all comes out in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I've written a piece on this week. It's sort of the second year in a row that there was a time when the top scorer always won it, didn't they? You literally most times somebody would score 25, 30 goals, and you could guarantee they were an absolute shoe-in for it, and they would get it every time. But I think you saw it last year. There was an outstanding top scorer last year, and Gus Hamer ended up winning it. And you look across the league this year again, and there's nobody really. I know Zan Vipotnik's the top scorer with 17, and there's a sort of clutch of players below him. But there's nobody who's really ripping it up. Nobody who you'd think, right, a Premier League club's definitely going to come in and get this guy for £25 million or whatever. So I think it's wide open again. It's the same as it was last year. I think for the first time last year, you could have picked any one of 10 players and made a reasonable case for them. And I think it's pretty much the same this year. It's really difficult to sort of nail it down and say this guy's the one. This has been the outstanding player. But I think for that reason, you've got to personally, I would say Vipotnik will be up there because he is the top scorer. He might not end up the top scorer, but that doesn't really matter because it's when the votes go. When the votes are made. I think anyone who's the top scorer in the Championship has got to be in with a shout. He's not necessarily the most elegant player. He's not particularly all-round forward. I don't actually think I don't think Premier League clubs are probably going to be looking at him. But he is very efficient. He's good off both sides. He's good in the air. His hold-up play and his all-round game isn't great, but he does what strikers are supposed to do. He gets into good positions. He can finish off both feet, and he's kind of the thing that's very impressive about him is he hasn't scored a single penalty this year. So those 17 goals, all of them have been from open play. And they've all come in a Swansea side that for 50% of this season were barely creating anything. They were struggling. They weren't creating chances. They weren't scoring goals. So for that reason, I think he's the first one I would mention as a potential contender.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's kind of it's sign of the times a little bit that the way teams are playing, there's not as many kind of possibly out and out goal scorers as such as there. It's kind of the way people kind of set up a little bit more these days, John. But is it even more impressive when someone's doing it at a side that's kind of not up there and racking in loads of goals and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think Zan Vipotnik's probably gone a little bit. He's probably gone a little bit under the radar. He probably hasn't really had the recognition he deserves this season because Swansea have been sort of probably mid-table, sort of a little bit lower than mid-table. So obviously hasn't been up there with a team that's been going for promotion or something, or that's been in the public profile too much. So he's probably not quite had the the credit he's sort of deserved for what he's done for a team that haven't been sort of setting the world alight. So I think you probably give him a little bit of extra credit for that. Funnily enough, actually, if you're just dipping into League One for a moment or so, someone who's sort of kind of particularly impressed me on a couple of occasions that I've seen him so far this season has been Don Ballard at Leyton Orient. So he's probably similar category. He's top of the League One scoring charts, and again, he's been playing in a struggling team as well. So you do sort of feel like those players probably deserve a little bit more credit for what they've done this season.
So a bit more love. Anyone who's sort of kind of stuck out for you, John? You sort of immediately when we talk Championship Player of the Year, you think, well, he's got to be in the conversation.
Well, I think probably Haji Wright at Coventry's got to be in the reckoning. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily be a definite or a standout for it, because I think as we probably sort of touched on there haven't been probably anyone that's been sort of head and shoulders above the rest this season. Perhaps Hayden Hackney at Middlesbrough, but I mean, Haji Wright certainly been one of the players for Coventry who sort of weighed in with plenty of goals. And obviously when they did have that crunch game against Middlesbrough, just when they were wobbling, obviously just having lost the league leadership, he obviously did come up trumps in that game. I think probably with Coventry, you'd probably say normally that a team sort of miles clear at the top, you'd expect one of their players perhaps to win that award. But again, we often look at goal scorers, don't we? And they've tended to share their goals around. Perhaps one player that's sort of shone for them as well. Another one could be Ephron Mason-Clark. Obviously, one of your old ex-non-league boys, Badders, but he's been brilliant on the wing for Coventry, and he's come up with some really important goals at important times as well.
He's come up with some spectacular goals as well, hasn't he? They had the overhead kick. Chris, is that again a sort of a reflection on Cov as well, that they kind of been so good across the board, really? You think of the goals that have been scored, lots of people chipping in. Brandon Thomas-Sante's obviously been there as well, hasn't he? It's kind of been that sort of stereotypical, as I'm sure Frank Lampard talking about, that sort of team effort. But it's they've across the in all positions they've been quality, haven't they? Yeah,
it's a bit like Burnley last year. When you look at Burnley last year, they were a brilliant team, but trying to sort of pick out an individual within that was difficult. And it is a bit like that. I mean, these awards, right? These sorts of awards, I always think that there are certain players who are never going to win them, right? So you could look at Coventry this season and say, Matt Grimes has been an enormously important player. Like he kind of sits there, he dictates the pace, he never waits a pass, he kind of keeps everything going. But he's never going to win a Player of the Year award.
I think he is top of the passing stats, I think, isn't he? At the minute. Yeah. Why wouldn't he win? That's the kind of the.
No, because it's the players. It's the players who score goals or particularly skillful or whatever. Change games. I think game changers are the people who win these awards. I think you look at someone like Kim, but he is equally important. But I think that is the way with Coventry. It's a bit like as well, like sort of Haji Wright. There was a spell where he sort of he got a little bit injured. He was carrying an injury and then injured, and then Ellis Sims came in and sort of took over and scored a load of goals. And there's been this sort of rotating cast up front who kind of all done the business. So it's difficult, and they've all had spells in the season where they've been good. So I'd be very surprised if a Coventry player won it, actually, just because it has been such a team effort.
It's one of those that's almost like they're just too good as a team, John, kind of thing, and it's sort of as Chris was saying, it reminds me of like Tom Champion was at Cambridge United a few years ago when Cambridge United got promoted. Cambridge fans watching this will, no doubt remember, but he was kind of that defensive midfielder who just sat there. He was so important how they played, but he wasn't scoring goals and all that sort of thing. He was kind of like letting everybody else give, and I think probably referred to himself as like a piano carrier kind of thing, and let the players play in front of him. But it is Coventry almost punished in that sort of sense, aren't they? Because they've all been so good.
Yeah, and it was quite sort of ironic as well with Matt Grimes obviously scoring against his old club Swansea at the weekend, because obviously he doesn't score many, and that was a really nice strike obviously against his old team there. So also I think you probably got to give a few plaudits as well to the goalkeeper Carl Rushworth, because often in games he not necessarily having a great amount to do, but when he has been sort of called upon, he has pulled off some terrific saves, and given them that solidity at the back. So yeah, I think you can say obviously everyone there has contributed. As we said, they have sort of shared the goals around. Lots of different players have chipped in as well. So yeah, they might be a case of them sort of all sort of taking the award off each other there.
I think someone I would probably chuck into this bracket as well is Oli McBurnie, because he plays for Hull as striker, and he's actually, in terms of goals and assists, he's got more goal contributions than any other player in the league this season. But again, I just do not believe he's going to win it for a second, because he's a kind of rough and tumble, hold up player, puts himself about, brings, he's not scoring worldies, is he? He's just like getting 6-yard headers and sort of tap-ins and whatnot when things bounce off someone from a corner. But, in terms of pure output and in terms of what he does for that team, he is literally him coming in and being that focal point and bringing people like Joe Gelhardt into play and letting everybody else play around him. He's been massive for Hull, but I think he definitely warrants inclusion in the sort of conversation for it. But I just again, I don't think he fits the sort of profile of a player of the year winner.
Not flashy enough.
Not flashy enough. Exactly.
John, you mentioned Hayden Hackney. Obviously, we've talked about quite a bit about him on here, and obviously just clearly class at Middlesbrough. Again, got to be in the conversation, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely going to be sort of right up there or thereabouts. So yeah, he's had a terrific season, and we don't get too many sort of ball playing sort of centre midfielders, sort of playmakers who can sort of obviously get up and down, and he can do a bit of everything. He can chip in with a goal, and he can create as well. So obviously, you'd expect someone from Middlesbrough. They've been up there, for a big swathe of the season, and he's been great for Rob Edwards and also for Kim Hellberg as well. So, and he does seem to have got sort of stronger and stronger as the season's gone on. I suppose now the question is, can he obviously keep it going for these final furlongs and help get them sort of over the line?
Chris, whatever happens, do you think he'll be a Premier League player next year?
Yes, I do, and I think you'll win as well. I think you'll win this award. Would be if you're asking me now for my tip, he is it, because I've watched him a lot this season, and he just looks he looks like a Premier League player already to me. He's just got that thing of he seems to operate in his own little bit of time and space. He's always sort of in the right position. He's got for me, he's a Championship Declan Rice, really. I think that's the best comparator, because it's like John said, he's got that. He can do a bit of everything. He sits there, in a deep line midfield position, and that's his nominal starting position. But really, what he's there for is to drive on, and he drives on, and he breaks lines, and he sort of takes on players. He takes players out of the game. And he's one of those players who, he gets the ball and his first instinct is either to pass forward, to drive forward, to just make stuff happen. And I think when it is very much like Rice. You can look at him as a sort of defensive midfield player in a way in terms of where he starts, but that's not what he is. It's about sort of pushing on from that position and becoming that extra man in attack. And yeah, you look at him and he can. I think his output's relatively sort of modest this year. I think he's got 5 goals and 6 assists, or the other way around. I can't remember which way it is. But I think over time that'll just get better and better, because when you look at the chances, those numbers are low because he's playing in a Championship team. In terms of the actual chances he creates statistically, I mean, he is just top of the pile in the Championship. There's nobody who's creating more chances than he is. So I think if you put him in a team with better players, then those numbers are going to go through the roof. So I just, you watch him in every game, he's a class act. Every game he's head and shoulders above every other midfielder on the pitch. So yeah, if I think if Borough go up, there's a reasonable chance he stays. If they don't, there's half the Premier League are going to want him.
Yeah, John, from his point of view, he's under 21s he's been with, and kind of, a lot of those players that he's had success on the international stage alongside, are playing Premier League. And you say, Chris says, hopefully from Middlesbrough sort of point of view, they'll go up and he'll be there. But he's probably going to get in that next sort of couple of years thinking, he has to be playing at that level, doesn't he? And if he can sort of kind of kick on from there, because you imagine once you're in that mix of players who have been recognised internationally through the age groups, that you should be in consideration for the senior team down the line.
Yeah, because I think once you've been shown yourself to be a top player in the Championship, then obviously if you want to kick on and develop your career, then you really need to go and obviously test yourself against better quality players and move up to that next level to really sort of challenge yourself again. So as we've sort of touched on there, if he can help Middlesbrough get up and then sort of stay with them, that's the sort of ideal scenario. But I think even Middlesbrough fans would probably sort of admit that if they don't go up, then chances are that he's got to do what's best for himself at this stage in his career, and then take that chance of whoever comes in for him if he thinks he's going to get sort of game time, because there's no point going somewhere in the Premier League and sitting on the bench.
Yeah, definitely. Chris, let's go on to the another two clubs. Obviously played each other on Saturday, that 1-1 at Ipswich. Ipswich leading, Millwall getting one back, and then could have gone out and won, couldn't they? The underside of the crossbar denying Millwall. But two sides as well, players that will surely be in the conversation.
Yeah, so from the Ipswich side, I think Anis Mehmeti's got to be really. It's because I guess you can look at Ipswich, you can look at Jack Clark in terms of the output he's had and say he should be in there, but he just hasn't played. But it's this odd situation at Ipswich where Jack Clark scored loads of goals, but then doesn't play half the games, so it's very odd. And I think
there's got too many good players.
Oh yeah, they've got 300 left.
He's got to play them all.
But
he's been unreal for them at Jack Clark in some of that, some of the goals that he scored have been important. Obviously, that one he scored on Saturday was a great strike. But
yeah, well, I think he's got like 13 or 14 goals from about 20 starts. Like that. It's amazing, really. So, but that's a debate for a different time. It sort of beggars belief that they don't start him more. But anyway, but I think if you look at Anis Mehmeti, what he did for the fact he was at Bristol City, he was their talisman. He was their sort of standout player, constantly delivered for them. Then he's gone into Ipswich and literally just sort of hit the ground running, done exactly the same thing. He's got a couple of goals, a couple of assists. They've put him in a number 10 position. He's looked really good there. And I mean, I think, in terms of his output, I think it's difficult to find many players better than he is. And his consistency and his ability to beat players. What I like about Anis Mehmeti is, there was a few years ago, a lot of people said, well, he's just a bit of a sort of your classic show pony winger, really. He just sort of dances around a bit and beats a couple of men and then doesn't produce anything. Whereas you watch him now and his decisions are just spot on every time. He's great at delivering the ball early. He gets it in the right areas. If shots are on, he takes them. If they're not, he doesn't. And I think that's the big difference. And sort of you've seen a player massively improve in sort of exactly the thing that people criticised him for. So for me, he's definitely up there.
Yeah, John, have you got a tractor boy you want to throw in?
Actually,
I spoke to Couchy, who's on the non-league papers executive editor, and he has been on here before as well. And Couchy tells me that Matusiwa is their best player and has been outstanding for him this season. He talks about Jack Clark and O'Shea as well, and Philogene, obviously when he's been there, how good he is, but he swears by Matusiwa. So again,
well, Couchy should know, but I mean, I think Ipswich have sort of been a bit of a funny team this season, because I think probably for most part of the season, you probably say they haven't really impressed. They haven't really been at their best yet. They're only still, I think, is it a couple of points behind Middlesbrough with a game in hand now?
And they're a point behind now, yeah.
Yeah, so even without them ever really sort of...
You're all right, 2 points. Sorry, John, you're all right, 2 points behind.
Yeah. I mean, without them ever really seem to hit in top gear, they're still there, there or thereabouts, right in the hunt. And they've been a bit funny season, because every time you sort of thought, right, Ipswich are really getting on a roll now. they seem to stick a sort of poor performance in and lose again, and Kieran McKenna sort of puzzled as to what's happened. So I think I'd be a little bit surprised if a player of the year came from Ipswich, and obviously Jack Clark has got his goals, but I think it's quite a few of those being penalties as well and stuff. So I think Ipswich have been a little bit of a funny team this season.
Are you putting more, like we said a minute ago, on Millwall, who have kind of probably nobody expected to be kind of right where they are, so in the mix for automatic promotion as they are? Do you sort of think they deserve more credit and players there than anyone who sort of?
Yeah, well, I think it's probably one of those things, expectations, because obviously Ipswich have been in the Premier League, so I think we all thought they were going to be going for it again, and obviously they spent quite a bit of money, didn't they, bringing players in as well, so they haven't really maybe performed as well as we thought they were going to do, whereas Millwall have been a surprise package, so you maybe look at them in a sort of a little bit of a different light because of that. But I think we've all agreed probably that Femi Azeez, as Alex Neil has sort of told us this season, is their talisman and their sort of creative player. So he's probably got to have a shot at it as well. Probably from a defensive point of view, Big Jake Cooper as well. But I mean, I think we all know that it's very, very rare for a defender to ever win these awards. So that'd be a turn up for the books.
Yeah, Chris, are you on the Femi Azeez voting train as well?
Yeah, well, he's another one that sort of the Premier League clubs are all over, aren't they? I mean, I know Ipswich wanted him in January, didn't they? Ipswich launched a bid for him because they just love wingers, and they got knocked back, which was very sensible from Millwall given the position they're in. But I think there'll be. You look at sort of Femi Azeez, what the player Femi Azeez has sort of become, and he's kind of your championship Bukayo Saka really in the way he plays. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Premier League clubs came in from, because his development has been so sort of rapid from Reading and to where he is now. So I think I'd be, at the very least, I think I'd be surprised if Millwall don't go up. I think one of the teams who come down, or a big championship club, would certainly try and sign him again. Maybe Ipswich again if they go up to the Premier League. Just because, it's a bit. He is very, very productive. That's the thing. He's one of these players who, it's not about just beating people and looking flash. It's goals and assists, and he's a player who can, he can cut inside and put one in on his left foot, or he can hit the byline and cross it with his right foot. He's got that variation to his game, and he tends to make good decisions. So that's generally always what they're looking for at the top level. It's not, you can be fast, you can be strong, but what they want to see is that you know how to play the game and that you make good decisions more often than not. And that's definitely something he does.
Yeah, John, maybe it's the sort of the journalist in me, but I sort of like with these awards, I kind of like the storylines behind it. And, you think about Femi Azeez and how he's, he was obviously at Watford as a youth, but then he's gone into Northwood in non-league and played at Northwood, gone to Wealdstone, had a loan spell at Hanwell Town. Then he's got his move to Reading. He's kind of gone that route, sort of similar with Ephron Mason-Clark, having to sort of go that. I quite like that kind of, to be thrown in as well, not just sort of stats and pure data, but kind of storyline as well of what someone's achieved. And he's an amazing sort of example to lots of young footballers who maybe their paths aren't going quite the way they maybe expected or hoped.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few of my local sides there. So to see him sort of go from that level of non-league, because we're not talking about those clubs that you sort of mentioned there. Obviously, Northwood and Hanwell, not in the the top flight of non-league. They're 2 or 3 rungs down the ladder. So to have gone on the journey that he's done in sort of rapid time has been really impressive, and just shows how far you can go. And I think with Ephron Mason-Clark as well, he's had a sort of similar rise. He was in non-league for a long time, wasn't he? Before I think people were looking at him for a while, but the move didn't sort of materialise, and he had to be very patient before he got that move. But then as soon as he has got in there and gone up the divisions, he's really shown what he can do, and seems to have got stronger and stronger as he's gone up the ladder.
Yeah, even better. So we had the piece in the Football League paper in the season. I spoke to Dean Brendan, and he said he came in from his first training session when he was at Barnet. Said he got a Premier League player out there, so you can get him under contract, kind of thing. But anyone, Chris, who else you think sort of could be thrown into this mix?
So there's definitely there's probably one other player I want to mention, and it's Leo Scienza at Southampton, just because I love him. So
this is because he always does well for you in EFL fantasy mainly, I think. So.
Well, yeah, he did get those 50 points in the fantasy league, which is nice of him. But he's just such a throwback, right? Like, there's a lot of talk, isn't there, at the minute about how sort of kind of robotic high level football's become, and how players are all over coached, and they're told where to be and what to do and how to do it at all different phases of the game, and they're overloaded with data, and it's all very sort of sterile. And I think sort of someone like Scienza, he's the absolute sort of antidote to that. You watch him play for Southampton, and it reminds you of watching sort of wingers attacking players from 20-25 years ago, where they just do things off the cuff. They're inventive. He's got a background in futsal, which is obviously. I think you can see that, like a lot of Brazilians do. It gives you the quick feet and the ball skills, and you just watch him, and it's like sometimes it comes to nothing. I think there's a lot of Southampton fans would tell you that it too often comes to nothing, but that's only because he's so good at getting into the right areas and beating men, and he's just a joy to watch. That's the only way I can put it. And I've actually got a suspicion that he will do quite well in the vote, because I remember hearing Frank Lampard talking about him earlier in the season, just saying what a brilliant player he was and how he loved watching him. And I think that's the thing. I think the managers and players, they admire technique, they love good technique, and probably a lot of managers who will remember him. They'll just remember watching him and how good he was. And I think there's a lot of appreciation for the kind of player he is. And I mean, I think he's another one. If he wasn't, I think he's 20. Is he 28? And I think if he wasn't so old, I mean, I think there'd be Premier League clubs looking at him just because he's so good. But for me, yeah, I think he deserves consideration just because he's brilliant to watch.
Obviously, they're coming up fast, aren't they? John, anyone else you sort of think might throw in there? We haven't discussed yet.
To be honest, no, I think we covered. I think we covered off. There's no one else that's really sort of springing to mind straight off the bat as another candidate. It's I mean, it is quite a level playing, quite a level playing field. So I think the votes could well be sort of spread around. I think Hayden Hackney probably is the favourite, but I think for the other places, it's probably fairly nip and tuck.
Yeah, Chris, does that sort of reflect how the league's sort of been this year as well?
Yeah, it does, and it's like you say, there's not been Coventry being the outstanding team, but it has been a team. But then I think you look below that, and everyone really, you can kind of chuck a blanket over people from Middlesbrough down really to over the rest, and say, because you've had a lot of teams who, it's like John said about Ipswich, you've had a lot of inconsistency. So teams like Ipswich and Southampton are kind of showing their class now, and the quality in their squad is shining through. Similarly to a bit like Norwich, but there's very few teams who actually put really consistent seasons together. I guess you have Millwall, who've been in the sort of the top six pretty much the whole season. Coventry and Middlesbrough, Hull have been up there quite a bit, but really below that it's really been in flux, the sort of middle of the table, and no one's done a sort of put a season together. So that's probably why, if the teams have been like that, the players have as well.
Yeah, it does seem like there's sort of teams you think 1 week, well, we're sort of struggling, not as high up as I thought, and then you look a couple of weeks later and then they're sort of right up, and sort of vice versa. Teams sort of tumble down the table, haven't they? But I guess that's what's going to make the run in exciting. And like we say, we've got obviously the international break now, but we'll talk about it next week when ahead of it all coming back. But it feels, mate, a little bit of a pause for everybody in that division to then kind of attack this the next, well, sort of 7-8 games now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and it's obviously Coventry look as though they've sort of gone now, don't they? But they're sort of over the hill and sort of far away. But I mean, for that race for second place, no one's really sort of grabbed it at the moment, have they? There's been a few those teams, Middlesbrough, Millwall, Ipswich, sort of dropping some points recently as well. Hull still fighting. I suppose we haven't talked at all about Wrexham, have we, either? They've done phenomenally well. First season up in the Championship. So that and Derby have maybe surprised a few people as well, because I think they had a bit of an iffy start, but they've really sort of come into the picture. Again, you'd probably say, I don't know, Derby, Wrexham, you'd probably again say maybe more team effort than particularly anyone who particularly standing out. So that battle for those last sort of playoff spots is going to be really interesting as well.
Teamwork makes the dream work. That's the motto of the Championship. We'll talk about the running as well when the next couple of episodes. You look at Ipswich, they've got Middlesbrough to play sort of in April, and that's going to be obviously a huge game in that sort of automatic promotion race. So, chaps, thanks very much. Like I said, we'll chat League One and League Two on another episode. Keep it separate and shine the light on those leagues as well. But we appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you pick up Sunday's Football League. Yes, there may not be as many games this week, but there will be lots of great stuff that chaps are going to be getting through this week. So make sure you pick it up on Sunday, and we will catch you next week. Cheers, chaps.